They betrayed me when I least expected it. My own sister. She stole all my money straight from my card. I found out by accident when my card was declined at the register. In that moment I felt only anger and shame. But more than that, a burning need for revenge. And my revenge will be something she remembers for the rest of her life. At first I couldn't believe it. I thought maybe it was a mistake, maybe the bank had an issue. But when I checked my account, I saw the transactions. One after another. Big ones. And every single one was traced back to her. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She used my card to buy clothes, makeup, even expensive electronics. Things she didn't need. Things she bragged about on social media. And every time she posted, it was like a slap in the face. She was showing off with my money. I confronted her. She just laughed. She said, "You'll get over it. You always do." Her arrogance was unbelievable. No apology. No guilt. Just pure disrespect. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let it slide. She thought I was weak. She thought I'd just let it go like always. But this time, she was wrong. The first step was patience. I didn't explode. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't scream at her again. I acted normal. Because revenge is best served when they least expect it. I started watching her. I paid attention to how she spent the money. Where she went. What she did. I noticed a pattern. She loved attention. Every purchase wasn't just for her. It was for the world to see. She wanted likes, followers, validation. And that gave me an idea. If she loved attention so much, I would give her exactly that. But in a way she would never forget. I began documenting everything. Screenshots of her purchases. Her social media posts. Bank records. Even small videos of her bragging to friends. Piece by piece I built a case against her. But my goal wasn't just to expose her. That would be too easy. No, I wanted her to feel what I felt. The anger. The shame. The helplessness. So I waited for the perfect moment. That moment came sooner than I expected. She was planning her birthday party. A big one. She invited friends, classmates, even people she barely knew. She wanted it to be the biggest night of her life. And she was using my stolen money to pay for everything. That's when my plan came together. I let her prepare. I let her brag. She posted teasers online showing little pieces of the decorations, the outfits, the theme. Everyone was talking about it. It was supposed to be her night. Her victory. Her proof that she was better than everyone else. But I was going to turn that night into something else entirely. The night she would regret forever. I kept silent. I kept smiling. I even pretended to be excited for her. I told her I couldn't wait for the party. And she believed me. She thought she had won. But behind the scenes I was preparing. I edited together a short video. A highlight reel of her theft. Every screenshot, every post, every transaction. Proof of what she had done. And I timed it perfectly. Because on the night of her party, when everyone was celebrating, I was going to show the truth. The day finally arrived. She was glowing, dressed in an outfit she had bought with my money. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, people were laughing and dancing. She looked like she had everything she ever wanted. Like she was untouchable. But she wasn't. I waited until the middle of the night. When everyone was gathered. When all eyes were on her. She stood on the stage thanking everyone for coming. She was soaking in the applause. She thought she was the queen of the night. And that's when I struck. The lights dimmed. The music stopped. And the projector lit up. Her smile froze. The first image appeared on the screen. A screenshot of the first stolen purchase. Then another. And another. Her voice bragging on video about the things she bought. Her posts, her captions, her selfies. Every piece of evidence. Exposed. The crowd went silent. You could feel the tension. People whispered, pointed, gasped. Her face turned pale. She tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. Everyone knew. The queen had fallen. And I was the one who made it happen. But this was just the beginning. Because humiliation was only part of my plan. I wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The room smelled like cheap perfume and spilled drinks. Her friends circled her like planets around a star. She stood there stunned, cheeks burning, eyes wide. People were whispering. Some looked angry. Some looked hurt. I could hear my own heartbeat in the quiet. She tried to explain. "It's a mistake," she said. "It's not what it looks like." Her voice trembled. But every screenshot was on the screen. Every receipt was there. The digital paper trail didn't lie. Someone shouted, "Return his money." A few people laughed nervously. One of her friends walked out. Another stared at her like she was a stranger. The music never restarted. I stepped down from the back of the room. People parted like waves. Her eyes found mine. I watched the moment when recognition turned into fear. I had more than humiliation planned. I wanted consequences. I wanted her to understand the damage she caused, not just to my bank account, but to trust, to family. After the party, I walked her home. Her steps were small. She kept glancing over her shoulder as if expecting more screens to light up. In the hallway she whispered, "Please don't tell Mom and Dad." I looked at her straight in the face. "No," I said. "You can explain to them yourself." The next morning my phone exploded. Messages, calls, screenshots forwarded by people I barely knew. Her classmates sent angry texts. Her job called to ask what was happening. She had posted a confession on her stories, but it was weak and staged. I had to decide the next move. I could have gone to the bank. I could have pressed charges. But the money could be recovered in different ways. And fighting in court would be slow. Public pressure would be faster. Public pressure would hurt where it mattered. I met with her privately. She begged. She promised. But apologies sounded like words without weight. So I made a choice. I offered her a deal. Not a threat. A deal. Return the money. Publicly apologize. Do volunteer work for the people she hurt. Make things right in front of everyone she had shown off to. Or she could do nothing and watch me escalate. She looked at me like I was joking. Then she saw my face and realized I wasn't. She had 2 days to decide. In those 2 days I prepared evidence packets. I printed transactions. I printed timestamps. I collected video of her shopping and posting. I organized a small campaign, a page with proof and a way for victims to reach out. Not to shame for the sake of shame, but so the truth was visible and the path to repair was clear. I contacted an attorney to understand options. I learned about small claims, civil restitution, and the limits of criminal action for a family theft. The law could help. But I also learned something else. People respond to consequences when they are public and swift. On the second day, her mother called me. Her voice was broken. She did not know what to do. She asked me to forgive her daughter. She asked me to be reasonable. I told her I would consider it, but only if the terms were real. My sister posted a long apology video. She cried. She said she was sorry. She said she would return every cent. She said she would volunteer at a local center for kids in need for 6 months, publicly on weekends. She asked for forgiveness. She asked for a chance to make amends. Some people said it was too little. Some said it was performative. But it was a start. I arranged for a meeting at the community center where she had promised to volunteer. I invited the people who had been affected most. I invited neighbors. I invited a reporter, not for a headline hunt but to document that promises were being kept. On her first weekend there she arrived with tired eyes and a hesitant step. The room was filled with kids, with older people, with volunteers who had no idea about our family drama. She put on an apron and started handing out sandwiches. Her hands shook at first. A little boy asked her name and smiled. Something in her face softened. I watched from the corner. This was not revenge in the way some might imagine. This was making wrongs visible and forcing responsibility. It was uncomfortable to watch her work. But I could see small changes, a nervous laugh replaced by a careful conversation. She stayed longer than she said she would. Meanwhile, online the reaction continued. Some called her a fraud still. Some supported her attempt to change. The more she did, the more the narrative shifted from pure shame to a story of consequence and potential repair. But not everyone forgave. Her closest friend posted a video explaining how betrayed she felt. Her employer put her on probation. And some family members still refused to speak to her. I continued to collect receipts and logs. Every refunded transaction was recorded and publicized gently. Every apology was logged. Justice moved in small increments. Then something unexpected happened. A former friend of hers reached out in private. He admitted he had helped her hide a few transactions in the beginning. He was ashamed and offered to testify to family members and to cooperate in getting the money back. His admission made things worse for her, but it also sped up restitution. We set up a repayment plan. Not perfect, but enough to return most of what was taken within months. She worked extra shifts. She sold things she had bought with the stolen funds. The community center helped organize a small fundraiser to cover gaps for legitimate victims. Through all this I kept my distance. I watched. I intervened only when promises slipped. I wanted her to feel the responsibility and not be able to hide behind my anger. One evening she texted me, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm so sorry." I looked at the message for a long time. Her words had weight now because they were followed by action. I replied simply, "Show it. Keep showing it." Months passed. The scandal quieted. Repayments were made. Her job reconsidered her status. She still had to rebuild trust with family and friends. But she had started. The last act of my plan was not humiliation. It was education. I organized a public talk at the community center about financial abuse among family members. I asked a lawyer to explain legal consequences. I invited counselors to speak about trust and recovery. I shared our story as a cautionary tale but also as an example that repair is possible. She stood beside me at that talk. No fanfare. No backpatting. Just two people in a room sharing truth. She spoke about her mistakes and about the steps she had taken. Some people nodded. Some had tears. Some clapped softly at the end. When the event finished, I felt odd, not victorious in the way I had imagined. There was relief. There was a strange peace. Revenge had not turned me into someone cruel. It had taught me how to insist on accountability. But the story wasn't over. There was still one person who had never said a word through all this. Someone who had watched while she spent the money but had not stopped her. Someone who might still step in and break what had slowly been repaired. That person had power. And I was not sure what his next move would be. So I prepared for one more moment. One more public choice. One more chance for truth to be visible and final. The day I announced the final meeting, the inbox filled with questions. People wanted to know if I was going to expose more. If I wanted more revenge. They wanted drama. I replied in one sentence. This is not about drama. It's about closure. And then I waited for what would come next. The day of the final meeting came like a quiet storm. I booked the community hall again. Not for spectacle. For closure. People filled the chairs slowly. Those who had been harmed. Volunteers. A few curious faces from social media. And one person I had not expected to see, the silent watcher. I started with facts. Short lines. Dates. Amounts. Photos of refunds. Screenshots of apologies. I wanted clarity, not theatrics. Then I invited my sister to speak. She stood in front of the room with tired eyes. No makeup. No bravado. She told the truth again. Not polished this time. Raw. She said she had been ashamed. She said she had hidden. She said she had been afraid to face us. She said she had spent months paying people back, working double shifts, giving away things she loved because they were bought with my money. People listened. Some nodded. Some wiped their eyes. A few remained quiet. When she finished, I opened the floor to those who wanted to speak. A young woman stood up, a classmate who had been humiliated by the fake luxury posts. She told the room how strange it felt to like a post that was built on theft. A neighbor told a short story about trust. A volunteer from the center described the boy who finally smiled because my sister had stayed and helped for months. Then I asked the question I had been holding back. Who else knew? I said. Who saw her spending and did nothing? Heads turned. Silence spread like a sheet over the room. A hand went up at the back. An older man I recognized from family gatherings. He was not a close relative. He worked with my sister, sometimes selling clothes to her online. He stood slowly and said, I saw the posts. I assumed she had money. I didn't ask. I didn't stop her. His voice shook. Young people do things I don't understand. I kept my distance. I nodded. It was a small confession. But the next person to speak changed everything. A woman rose from near the door. She was someone I had always respected. A distant aunt who often hosted family dinners. She spoke quietly. I saw her with the bags. I thought she had saved. I told myself it was none of my business. The room felt heavier. Pieces of silence came together to make a louder truth. Then a man walked to the front. He was a friend of the family. He had been completely silent until now. He looked at my sister and then at me. I could have stopped it, he said. I sold some items back to her that were actually mine. I told myself I was helping her. I signed for a few packages. I didn't think it would go this far. The room reacted. Some people stood. Some shouted. A few left. I felt a cold clarity then. This was never just about my sister. It was a net of people who looked away. People with small choices that added up. I had one last thing to do. Not to shame. To make responsibility unavoidable. I stood and handed a sealed envelope to the hall coordinator. Inside were the final receipts. A full ledger of refunds. Names of those who still had balances. And a plan. A plan for restitution beyond money. Mandatory counseling for my sister paid by a small fund we had created. A schedule for full repayment. A public apology posted on the community page permanently. And a legal agreement signed by my sister and witnessed by the coordinator. I wanted it structured and real. Not words. Actions. My sister signed in front of everyone. Her hand trembled. She read the commitment aloud. People watched her promise. Then the silent watcher stepped forward. It was someone I had not expected to hold accountable. A person who had influence. A person whose silence had been part of the problem. He cleared his throat and said, "I will help fund the rest." He handed a check to the coordinator. He said, "No excuses. We failed to protect each other. I will make sure this does not happen again." There was no applause. Just a long breath like a city exhaling. After the meeting I walked my sister to the door. She hugged me tightly and this time it felt different. Not the desperate clinging that hides guilt. A real sorry that wanted to change. Months passed and the work continued. She kept her promises. She paid back most of the money. She worked at the center on weekends. She joined group therapy. She stopped posting lavish photos. People noticed. Some forgave. Some did not. That is how it should be. As for me, I learned something I hadn't expected. Revenge that heals is rare. Revenge that teaches even rarer. I had wanted to make her feel what I felt. Instead, I found a path that asked for repair. In time we gave a small public update. The ledger was balanced. The fund was closed with a surplus for the community center. My sister had letters from people thanking her for the work she did for kids. She had fewer friends but steadier ones. One evening I found an old photo of the three of us at the beach. My sister laughing with ice cream on her face. My father squinting into the sun. My grandmother clapping. I placed it on my shelf. I did not burn bridges. I rebuilt them where they were needed. Before I close this story I should say this. I did not enjoy hurting her. I felt little triumphs, yes. But the real victory was the slow rebuilding of trust. The community stronger. The lessons learned. And when someone asks me if I regret the methods, I say this. I do not celebrate the fall of a family member. I celebrate the accountability that followed. I celebrate the children who now have a better center. And I celebrate that a person who broke trust chose to fix it. We still do not talk like before. There are still quiet corners of hurt in our house. But there are also moments of real apology and real work. When the storm finally passed, the aftermath felt like a field after rain. New grass. New chances. I keep the receipts in a folder now. Not as trophies. But as reminders. And sometimes at night I think of what would have happened if I had only screamed and walked away. Maybe she would never have paid. Maybe others would have suffered. Maybe nothing would change. Instead we chose a hard path. A path that made people uncomfortable. A path that asked for responsibility. This is the end of my story about betrayal and repair. Not perfect. Not cinematic in the way some expect. But real.